What up, what up, what up? Welcome into another edition of Green with Envy. As always, it's your boy Will Weir checking in. How you doing? How you living? Joining me today, as he does each and every time, my best friend, co-host, and the coach of our podcast, the one and only Greg Manakis. We are on the precipice of vacation. How you feeling, my guy?
I'm feeling that very much. Like it's tough to really get hyped for the pod because I know that we're about to be on summer break for a week. The quick programming note, stealing Will's duties right now, but we are taking a quick little 1 week hiatus next week unless there's going to be some breaking news. So I feel really good because I'm also actually taking a real vacation from work as well. So I'm not only taking a vacation from the pod, I'm going to be going back home to Boston to celebrate my engagement with Danielle, my fiance's family, this weekend, and then my family down Cape Cod Monday through Thursday. I will be in Falmouth. I will be on the beach. Come find your boy. If you are listening and you're down the Cape, come buy me a drink on the beach, or if you can't really buy a drink on the beach, but bring me a drink on the beach in Cape Cod, and I would gladly have a drink.
Does saying my fiance have the same effect as the Seinfeld episode where my wife has an inner ear infection? Yeah, I do like the sound of that. Does it have that same effect for you?
Yeah, I've been trying to get my betrothed going, but it's every time I say
I'm not gonna lie, man. I heard you say that one time. I thought it was like, if you're actually trying to get that going, I would X-nay on that. It's
no, I mean not like for real, but just just trying to bring some class to my life, Will. You know what I'm saying?
Is it class? I don't know.
Hey, to each his own. To each his own. You know, it's like one of those things where, like, if I said it like in freaking Adam's accent, then I bet it would sound better.
That's true. It would sound a lot better.
Right. So maybe like if someone out there is listening to it, I'm like, oh yeah, my betrothed Danielle. And then they're like, oh, that just sounds classy, just because they don't have the accent that we have, even though we don't really have.
Once again, what do we always say on this podcast? Context matters. So the context and the situation in which it said would make a difference. But
I thought you were going to say from ashy to classy, but okay.
Do we say that a lot on this?
I feel like you used to say that all the time.
Maybe that bit. Honestly, we've been doing this for 2.5, 3 years now, or whatever it's been at this point. That probably was something I used to say at one point, but context matters is when I know that we've kind of always stuck to. But you kind of led with this here programming note. This will probably be the last podcast until I would guess a week from Sunday or so would probably be about the time frame. Like Greg said, pending any breaking news that may happen. You may hear Adam hop on here. You may see some combination of 2/3 of 3-man weave, or even Adam with potentially a pinch hitter jumping in here. But that kind of leads us into where we're at today, where we're still waiting on that Jaylen Brown extension. Still hasn't come. So, that's all we can do is wait. The Kristaps Porzingis went official today, 2 years, $60 million. The Grant Williams trade went official today. Celtics getting a bevy of versatility in the second round. If that doesn't excite you for the upcoming season, I don't know what's wrong with you. But that's kind of where we're at. So we're hitting the doldrums, if you will, of the offseason here as Summer League is just about to wrap up. Celtics have a few more games this week with their Summer League team, which I'll be honest is, I've enjoyed watching Jordan Walsh. I'll get your thoughts on this here, Greg, but it hasn't been the most exciting Summer League team to really, hype up that off-season lull that we're hitting here.
Yeah, I'm not excited at all. I thought it was cool to watch him for, games. I'll watch highlights, but I'm just, especially coming off of such a disappointment at the end of the season, like, Summer League Celtics basketball not high on my priority list right now. Like I'm watching to see Jordan Walsh, but like I'm not doing the deep dives on these guys that might be on the like main
fringes.
Team. Yeah, like there's just no way that I'm going to do that with my life right now.
I think back to just like a few years ago, we had like Peyton Pritchard, Aaron Nesmith. It was like real guys that felt like, hey, this could be something. And so, and they made that run to the Summer League championship 2 years ago or whatever it was. And like, that was kind of fun. This team, so it is what it is. So with that being said, we reached out to all of you to kind of help us build content. And then we have a new segment that we want to roll out at the back end of the podcast, which I think will be a lot of fun. It's going to be called Welcome to the Party. We'll explain more about that here in just a little bit. But let's start off with a couple of mailbag questions that we got here, Greg. So let's start out with a few that we got on Twitter. So let's start with this first one that we got from our guy at Delin_36. Speaking of second round picks, what's the ceiling / basement for these second round picks if they were to be packaged in a trade?
Well, I mean, I think there is really the second round picks is all about facilitation of a deal, right? Like you look at the Bradley Beal deal to Phoenix, second round picks were really important in that deal to get that done. You know, I think with so many teams worried about the second apron with the luxury tax and the value of being able to sign a second round pick to a non-guaranteed deal. Jordan Walsh, as you saw, just got that 4-year contract, locking these guys up that are going to be developmental projects, but also might be able to fill out your roster, get a little bit of time. One of these guys might pop. You never know. You end up with the Nikola Jokic, you know, you never know who you're going to end up with the second round pick. So I think that's kind of how I see second round picks right now, is they're really just there as sweeteners in deals, and maybe as some teams kind of back themselves into some corners with lack of picks, or maybe they have they don't handle their cap situations well and they need more draft capital. Maybe you end up getting in the future, second round picks get you a little bit more than they do right now. Because right now, you're given, I don't know, I would say like maybe 4 second round picks is equivalent to 1 like mid-teen pick.
Well, it depends, right? Because, first round picks, especially unprotected lottery picks or top 15 to 20 picks, those are still the cream of the crop when it comes to, and I saw this a lot with, when we lost Grant like a week ago. Sounds like he died, but when Grant went to the Mavs, a week ago, it was, Brad's piling picks. What's he doing? It's like, he's piling second round picks. Like, and I think, and you brought up the Bradley Beal trade, and I think that to me is the biggest mistake a fan can make. Nothing that's what you did, but I'm saying to a fan like, hey, Bradley Beal went for 5 second round picks. That's not the going rate. He had a no trade clause. It was an outlier situation.
And they also got more than just second round picks.
And they got more.
Like,
they got
swaps and first round picks
swaps
too,
and Chris Paul, all that stuff. But my point being is that I think some people will look at that and say, hey, there's a lot that can get done with second round picks. And now I would say certainly not typically to that extent of a level of player of Brad Beal is something getting done, but we have seen second round picks right now currently be at kind of an all-time high value wise, from even looking back at the trade deadline. What was there? 3-4 different trades that were five second round picks to get a guy at least they thought would be a rotation player. Obviously, I think the Bucks right now would be like, damn, I'd like to have those 5 second round picks back for what we got from Jay Crowder in that deal. So for the Suns, that's a really big, or they didn't get it from the Suns because it's a 3-way deal. I forget where it went to. But, so I do think that there is an increased value of those second round picks. So I think on the high end, like the second round picks by themselves with salary filler, they still do what I just talked about. Like they maybe can get you a mid-season back of the rotation type guy that you're like, hey, we need to make this push. We got to get this guy for $6 million. Let's, we can take a couple of a Peyton Pritchard contract, maybe if he's not playing or something, plus something else. We can go get a real guy that could be, a
might
10,
fit a need.
Minute. Yeah, it might fit a need. Might be a 10-15 minute guy come playoff time. And then otherwise, I think you're kind of looking at, like you said, they're still just going to be fillers. But as you do look to how the Celtics are building out these second round picks, they are increasing their chances with a lot of these picks being from the best of out of X amount of teams. One of the second round picks that came back as a swap, which I've never heard of until a week and a half ago, that you could do a second round pick swap. So a lot of these, the Celtics are setting themselves up for the best chance to have what basically could equate to a late first round pick, trying to get one of those, 30 to 35 type slots to try and get some of those guys that can really help fill the roster when you have, if this Jaylen Brown extension is announced, his super max. Jason Tatum's coming in 2 years. Kristaps Porzingis has 2 years. Well, now really basically 3 years, a little over 90 million is basically what Porzingis is at as of today. And so with that, you're going to need a few of those guys. So you're hoping Jordan Walsh, who just got a 4-year deal, that, hey, by, year 2, year 3, he's playing real minutes and you're getting a guy in your rotation for $2 million, So I think there's value to him. I think in a trade, they're sweeteners. I think you can get probably a little bit more for them depending on, once again, context matters. If it's the right time, you can maybe get a rotation guy mid-season. But I wouldn't go crazy would be my ultimate point, thinking that you're going to get something closer to that Bradley Beal level. All right, let's go to our next Twitter question that we got here from @CMerc5. Hopefully I'm saying that right here. Question we got: with all the injury concerns of the front court and the back court being weakened, how do they get better? The Celtics roster isn't deep at all, so that's a huge concern. Your thoughts, Greg?
Well, our front court improved dramatically this year with the addition of Porzingis, right? Losing Grant, yeah, that was tough, but Grant was the worst of our front court players, right? So we replaced the worst of our front court players with a guy who's coming in and is going to be the best of our front court players, entering his prime, coming off the best season of his career since his last season in New York. And you can make an argument this is the best season overall of his career. So, you know, like the ceiling of that front court, I think, is still huge. The depth is a concern, but as you saw during the regular season, like a guy like Blake Griffin, who knows if he's going to be back with the Celtics, but he was able to play spot minutes. Luke Cornett, in the regular season, he had some games where it's like, oh man, like Green Cornet, let's go. Like he actually looks okay, fooling diehards into thinking he might be able to steal a spot in the playoff rotation, which like was never going to happen. But during the regular season, 82 games, you need those guys that can come in and fill spots. And I think Luke Cornet can do that, you know, in the regular season. So I think we have that opportunity. And then, you know, whisperings of other 7'4" big men that are still out there in the market that might end up in Boston. Looking at you, Boban, like maybe Boban ends up.
Talk about
Boston.
A fan favorite right there if he comes in.
Yeah, like there's some whisperings of that, you know. So if we brought in a guy like Boban, that would be really cool to have on the roster filling out that front court. So there are other guys out there like Grant. Yeah, Grant is going to be tough to lose. And I think that he offered a little bit more than he was able to provide under Mazzulla. I think Mazzulla just kind of underutilized him. I've always been a big Grant Williams fan, so losing him stinks. Smart, you know, he's been hurt in not playing great this past year. So losing him, you know, he's going to be motivated in Memphis. I'm sure he'll have a great first year in Memphis there, but you know, you can fill that with more Derek White. We're going to talk about Brogdon here in a second, but if Brogdon ends up staying with the team, Brogdon was awesome during the regular season. Everybody, don't forget this. He was hurt in the playoffs. He was the sixth man of the fucking year. So like he still has the potential to be great for the Celtics next year with increased responsibility. Peyton Pritchard, same thing. He's shown that he can come in. He's like a better version of, I would say like Peyton Pritchard could give you like 85% backcourt equivalent of what Grant Williams gave to the front court last year with regular limits. You know,
I wasn't sure where you were going with that, but I like that. At first I was like, man, is he going to say 85% of Marcus Smart? I was like, where is he going with this? But no, I agree to what you're saying there with Peyton Pritchard. I mean, I think for the question, you know, how do the Celtics get better? The answer is Kristaps Porzingis, right? That's how they get better. Is Porzingis is healthy and Porzingis plays like he did in Washington last year. You know, that's going to be the key. And I think we touched on this pretty well on the last podcast. You know, the ceiling for this team is higher, but the floor is lower, right? There's just less room, I think, for this team to have, you know, because of some of those depth, but also with that depth last year, I mean, we didn't make the finals. You know what I mean? Like there was still, you know, there wasn't necessarily a silver bullet to, hey, we're going to go ahead and make the finals, right?
But Will, real quick, like all these people that are talking about how like losing Smart and losing Grant hurts our depth, right? Which is true. But at the same time, if one of those guys gets hurt next year, if Marcus goes down or Grant goes down, we're probably in an equivalently bad spot. Like injuries happen to all teams, and that's going to hurt the team, right? But I think getting Kristaps allows you the luxury of being like, oh, if Jason gets hurt for a little bit or Jalen gets hurt for a little bit, like having another guy that's a bona fide all-star, which we do not have anywhere else on the roster, is huge for this team. And, you know, maybe Kristaps is the guy that gets hurt, and like we have to rely on Al a little bit more. We have to rely on Rob a little bit more.
I mean, we go back to our Derek White, the Jays, Rob and Al, right? That's kind of right where we're back, where that's where we would have been if we had Marcus and Grant anyways, right? That's kind of the lineup. And so, you know, to your point, like that's the benefit of having something that's a more realistic big three, right? Whereas, you know, it really is, that's a great way to put it. Porzingis is kind of Jay's insurance, right? It's Jalen and
Mhm.
Jason insurance. So that, obviously if you get to the conference finals or finals, it's probably not going to matter if you lose those guys. But if you lose them for an injury for a month during the season, it's a lot easier to sustain with a guy like Porzingis or even the first round of the playoffs.
We all just saw this in fucking game 7 against the Heat. Jason Tatum goes down, right? And what happens to the team? They just crumble. And like Jaylen Brown was having a really bad series at that point. But like, there was no other guy that we could look to. Like
Derek White was the only one that could potentially try and get a bucket in that entire game.
And Marcus has been able to step up in some of those moments throughout his career, but it's always like, oh, is it gonna have to be Marcus tonight? Like, damn, that like put the Superman cape on Marcus. But yeah, anything can happen. But more often than not, Marcus isn't able to get to that level because he's not that player, right? Mm-hmm. But if Tatum goes down game 7 and we have Porzingis, maybe there's a world in which he's like, like me and Jalen got this. Because he's that level of player. He's not on the same level as Jason Tatum, but he's close to the level of Jaylen Brown at the big man position.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And, so injuries are going to be a concern, but they're a concern for everybody. I mean, the Bucks are going to look back at the last 2 seasons. Oh, if Middleton didn't get hurt this past year, if Giannis didn't get hurt in the first round, what happens? Like, that's going to be a concern anyways. And so if you're going to have that concern regardless, I think you'd rather have the higher ceiling, which is what the Celtics have with this team. And, like we just talked about in the last question, maybe with some of those second rounds, maybe there's another move that can be made in season. They have a small TPE. Maybe that's where they take 2 second-round picks. They find a guy that, we haven't seen what that final TPE will be, but, maybe it's around $6 million, $6.5 million. And there's a Sadiq Bey to go get, or there's somebody that, kind of fits into that slot, and you go do that and you add that for depth. But right now it's not available. And I think, my biggest thing I would say is I'm not super concerned from that standpoint. And I think right now, while it is tough, and I am going to miss the versatility. We were all much bigger on Grant than I think Mazzulla was, which I think is the ultimate reason why he's not here, is that you can't pay a guy who your coach doesn't really want to play. And so that's why he's not here. That will be a loss, but I wouldn't go too crazy because I do think the Celtics are in a better championship position right now. Mm-hmm. So with that, let's take a break and we'll do one more fan mail question. All right. Last question that we have here from the mailbag. This is from our guy, Corey Brooks. Shout out to Dorchester guy, Corey Brooks, over on Instagram. What's the lowest trade package you would take for Brogdon? And, Greg, you and I were talking about this. It feels like, Celtics fans have really kind of soured on Malcolm Brogdon pretty quickly. Now, granted, he has his flaws, and I think I've talked about it. I don't know if it was with you or with Adam, but I think part of his flaws were just were kind of baked into how the Celtics asked him to play this year. He kind of played the way that I think we would have wished Ime had utilized Dennis Schroeder when he was here. They're different style of players, but I'm saying in the sense that, hey, you're going to play 20 to 25 minutes. Your main objective is to get buckets. Like, you're going to be another guy that creates his own shot. You're going to be another guy that can get downhill and get to the cup. And then Brogdon's obviously a much better shooter than Schroeder, so it just makes the geometry of the floor that much better. But he wasn't asked to be the guy that, we saw in Indiana who averaged 7 assists per game, who had the ball in his hand, and it was his job to run pick and roll with Domantas Sabonis and create for others. That wasn't really his role in this team. And so I think between that and then obviously the injury that we were all kind of waiting for that never happened in the regular season, it finally happened in the playoffs, has left a sour note in a lot of Celtics fans, mouths right now. And I think it's kind of, it's clouding the fact that he won 6th man of the year and was pretty damn good for most of the season.
So what was Corey's question?
So the question was, what's the lowest trade package that you would take back for Malcolm Brogdon?
I mean, I don't have any names off the top of my head, but definitely someone that's going to be in the rotation, right? So it's probably Brogdon plus 2 picks or whatever it is, like the second round picks we just talked about, for a guy or 2 guys that are able to fill out the rotation with a little bit more depth. But you can't just get rid of Brogdon because you don't like how much you're paying him, or if people are floating out there that his like contract's like an albatross or anything like that.
I think it's really, pretty good market value, to be honest.
It's pretty good market value, right? So we definitely need to get somebody that is going to play real minutes on this team, because Brogdon, although he's like kind of athletically getting into the Andre Miller territory, where he can't really get, he can't really get by anybody anymore. He's really relying
kind
on
of a
that
similar
shot.
body type too.
Right. He's a little bit more, a little bit less bad body Andre Miller. You know what I mean? Like Andre Miller wasn't very defined. I feel like Brogdon, he's got some definition to him, but it's just like, I think if Brogdon's on the team this year, just pure talent, let's just say we get a fully 65 games healthy Malcolm Brogdon, is better than what you could probably get for him right now, just because of the damaged goods label that's out there with that elbow. But if it's a concern, if it's a real concern that Malcolm Brogdon isn't going to give you even 50 games this year, if you're really that concerned about his health, you kind of need to just trade for, if he's a dollar, right, you got to trade for 2 50-cent pieces,
Yeah, I mean, the tough part for me is just like, yes, it kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier. Like, yeah, his health's going to be a gamble and he's going to have a little bit more responsibility. But that's also why we haven't heard the Peyton Pritchard trade rumors, right? Like, you're still going to have another guy where if you want to rest Brogdon on back-to-backs, which they did, at certain points in the season last year, like, you're still going to be able to do that. And I'm still going to feel confident in most games when we roll out there with Peyton Pritchard and with Derek White as the primary quote-unquote point guards. So, I think for Brogdon, I just wouldn't be – I get the idea of trading him at potentially his peak value, winning 6th man of the year, being healthy, all of last season up until the playoffs. But I wouldn't be in a rush to get off a guy that just shot, 44% from the 3-point line, 1-6 man, is going to be, now you have with Porzingis. I mean, this gets back to the other thing you said, Greg, the insurance of, Malcolm Brogdon wasn't available when Jason Tatum goes down. Malcolm Brogdon was that original kind of insurance piece. So now, if one of the Jays is to go down, you still have 3 other guys that have averaged 20 plus in this league. And so I think Brogdon is still going to be an important part of this team. The part that I'm most concerned about is he wasn't rumored to be traded. This man just was traded. And I know, like, if you and Adam tried to trade me and we're like, oh yeah, The Athletic was a little concerned about some of your pronunciations, the way you pop your P's. It wasn't going to work, but we still love you. We still think that you have a lot of potential. You're going to be an integral part of our team. We'd love to have you back. Like, I'm going to feel different about that, right? Like, it's not going to sit very well with me that I was originally supposed to be the trade. So that's the part that I'm more concerned about, that Brogdon's going to come in and and he's going to say all the right things, right? Malcolm Brogdon, Barack Brogdon, like he's always going to say the right thing. So I don't think it's going to be hard to read into him throwing a tantrum or, being, openly or visibly unhappy, but it's going to be behind the scenes. You're really going to have to do some body language reading to see, all right, is this guy actually going to be productive, or is what we tried to do and failed to do publicly going to be too much?
Yeah, I mean, there's just some names. I'm looking at NBA salaries for 23-24, just using ESPN right now. But some guys that are in the same range as Brogdon, who's making 22.5 this year. You're looking at the Terry Roziers of the world, Clint Capella, Spencer Dinwiddie. Like, no, I don't think the Hawks would trade DeAndre Hunter. Bogdanovich on the Pistons is someone I've always liked. You're looking at like Joe Harris. Like, there's not really that many. Gary Trent Jr. I mean, there's not really a lot of guys out there that I'm like super stoked to acquire. So I'd probably rather just run it back with Brogdon. And then if a deal comes to you where somebody sells low, like if the Jazz, right? The Jazz are like, we're just going to continue to stash assets. Colin Sexton, $17 million a year. Like, maybe that's a guy that you take a run at,
and that's the thing, right?
Replacement.
Because Brogdon's salary is also good to have in a just in case something comes available scenario, right?
Yeah.
Because that's going to be where you might find some guys that are interesting, either like in that Colin Sexton mold, or even if you decide, Brad said he has the green light to spend. Didn't feel like that with Grant, but, obviously time will tell. And if a guy comes available and I'm not looking at, who's available at the 25, 26, 27, 28 million, but someone comes available and you're like, okay, well, we got the Brogdon salary. Now we just got to piece it together with a few back end pieces and you're there. And, you have all your draft picks, you accumulate all these second round picks. So then you do have more options to move. So I wouldn't be, in a rush to sell low on a Malcolm Brogdon package. I think he's too valuable on the court. And then as a potential salary matching asset, I think there's a lot of value there as well. So I think if the Celtics can mend the fences properly, the best path forward is still going to be, for now, with Malcolm Brogdon on this team.
Love it. Couldn't have said it better myself.
All right. With that, let's do you want to take a break now, or should we jump into our next segment here, Greg?
Let's jump into the next
Greg,
segment.
what do you think?
Next segment. Yeah.
All right. So we got a new segment that we want to do here, and this is the brainchild of producer Greg over here. So it's going to be called Welcome to the Party. And Greg, I'm going to lay out here for a second. I want you to kind of give the rundown of what to expect. I think I did it properly based off your instructions, but like I said, this is your baby here. So roll with it.
Okay. Well, basically, we're breaking guys into 3 categories that we as individual consumers and fans of basketball are either late to the party on, we're early to the party on, or we, like everybody else, are already at the party of a guy. So, for example, someone that I think everybody in the NBA after this current season is now at the party would be like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Everybody accepts that this guy is a great player now. Moving forward, I don't think you're going to have any SGA skeptics, right? So that's at the party. If we're talking about early to the party, someone who in the past I feel like I was very early to the party on was Bam Adebayo, right? Like I was super, super early to the party on Bam. I loved, even like the first time I saw him in Summer League, I literally tweeted out, he's going to be a future defensive player of the year, right? So who are we early to the party on? Some other guys that I feel like are kind of gone beyond that early to the party would be like a Naz Reid. I feel like coming into this year, you could have said, I'm early to the party on Naz Reid. I feel like he's kind of transcended that. Now everyone is just like, oh, Naz Reid's like a really good player. And they'd like to have him on the team.
He's actually on my at the party list that I have here, because I had a couple to see where I was going. But yeah, Naz Reid was on that list, as was SGA, actually.
For sure. And then late to the party, basically, it's guys you think are overrated.
Okay. I like it. Well, let's start with late to the party. Let's kick it off, Greg. Let's see what you got.
Okay. I mean, this is a guy that I at times liked, but the more I watch him, I'm just like, I really don't think he's as good as oh no. So I have a good example before I go into this guy. Robert Covington would be a late to the party guy from years past, when everybody's like, oh, Robert Covington, you got to get Robert Covington. He's like the perfect trade piece to get. He could swing a championship, like Zach Lowe, one of the greatest basketball minds out there, loved Robert Covington. And I was like, dude, he's not that good, right? Yeah. Robert Covington was never that guy. So similarly, a guy, because I think Rocco is on the Clippers at this point, right?
He's on the Clippers. That's correct.
Yeah. So another guy on the Clippers that at one point when he's on the Raptors, I liked him a little bit. And now I feel like he's become very, very overrated. My guy, Norm Powell.
I'm so mad. It's so funny that you say that. As I was doing my research today, I actually thought to myself, this is 100% who Greg's going to pick. And I meant to jump in and guess it. And I knew you were going to go with Norm Powell. Continue.
I just think everyone talks about him like he could be a legitimate third guy on like a really good team. And that's just what I do not see Norm Powell in any starting lineup in the NBA. I think he's like a really good bench player, but I don't see some of the discourse out there with Norm Powell being available because the Clippers might be blowing stuff up, or, they might want to make one last run, but get a third star. And he's a name that's floated out there. It's like, you can't put Norm Powell on the Philadelphia 76ers with Maxey and Embiid and be like, oh, we're good now, we have Norm Powell. Like, that's just not the case. He's not that guy. I think he is a good player if you're saying, all right, he's going to be our 6th or 7th man on a team. I think he fits that role really well. But I'm late to the party on Norm Powell being like a starting backcourt caliber player in the NBA.
I mean, I think that's fair when you look at it from that perspective. I like Norm Powell, but in my mind, he's kind of the Malcolm Brogdon for a team, right? Like how we just described what Brogdon can come and do off the bench. Like that's kind of how I view Norm Powell. He's that third guy that can potentially get you 20 points in a game, but you're also not relying on him to play 30 to 35 to 40 minutes in a big game, right? He's kind of maxing out at 25 to 30 on a night where he's cooking. Like that's kind of like where I view his lane. I think because of the weirdness of the Clippers, it's never fully made sense as to where he fits because he's a guard, but then they have Kawhi, they've got Paul George, they've brought in John Wall, they got Russell Westbrook. Terrence Mann, who's a guy that I have on one of my other lists here. I like him, I think he's the better option out of the two players. I like Terrence Mann overall more than I like Norm Powell. But if you're looking for, if you need 20, Norm Powell is probably the better bet than Terrence Mann. So, because that team's so weird, I think it's never been quite the right fit. But I think there could be a good role for Norm Powell. But I'm with you, especially when I hear some of these James Harden trades, and it's like maybe Norm Powell fits better with Joel Embiid. I'm like, well, it doesn't fit better with Joel Embiid. Like, I get that. Like, if you're trying to get something for James Harden, like maybe that's a route, and that's not like the worst piece, along with whatever else would have to come. But we can't act like that's a 1-to-1 replacement. So that's where I think you're kind of leaning. Yeah,
absolutely. So who do you got for your late to the party?
Okay, so I have a couple names here because I wasn't really sure.
Just give me
where
one
to go with this. Just give you one. Okay, so I'm trying to debate if I want to go with the role player or I'll go with the one that's probably a little bit more fun. I'll go with Zach Lavine. I've gone kind of back and forth. Late to the
party on Zach.
Yeah, we've gone back and forth with Zach Lavine. I think one of the segments that we did early on in our podcasting careers, we were just ranking, I think, shooting guards in the NBA in the Eastern Conference. And I either had Tyler Hero above him.
You did, which is insane at the time, and to this day is still absolutely.
Bananas. I was sipping on some Tyler Hero. I still do like Tyler. I still got Tyler Hero stock. I like Tyler Hero. I think he's being a little bit undervalued. He's certainly not, the return you would want for Dame Lillard, but I still think he's really good. And I think in certain situations, he's going to be a really valuable player. But Zach Lavine, it's been long enough. Like, 1, the injury concerns, 2, the contract, and 3, just what are you winning with this guy? Like, I know the situations he's been in haven't been perfect. They've been somewhat clunky even at times, but it's basically the same result every time with the Bulls. And then even when you look back at his early career, like, Wiggins and Town, like he's been with a solid amount of talent every stop in his career. And I think he's played in 4 postseason games the entire time. And it's a little bit similar to, what you were saying about Norm Powell on a slightly different level. But just like, I don't think Zach Lavine's a number 2, which I think sometimes that he's always kind of thrown as like the man, if Jaylen Brown is so unhappy, should you just go and settle for Zach Lavine and some picks? Or, if you're the Raptors, do you trade out Pascal Siakam for Zach Lavine? Like, I think Jaylen and Pascal are so far beyond Zach Lavine. And so that's for me where I just feel like Zach Lavine is a guy that I like. If my favorite team had a guy that I thought was better, and even if the contracts, weren't working out, or you didn't want to pay a certain amount, if you were going to lower yourself to the Zach Lavine level, I'm just gonna have a hard time feeling good about that move.
Yeah, I'm higher on Zach Lavine than you are. I was gonna ask you the question, but you just kind of answered it. It's like Zach Lavine, best possible season this upcoming year. How close of a player is he to Jaylen Brown in your eyes?
His best possible, I guess. If you go best possible, I guess he's
like it's career year. Like, when you look back at Zach Lavine's career, it's like, 2023 was his best year in his career.
Yeah, I think his best year would be he's the 3rd best player on a contending team. I think Jaylen's proven that he can be the 2nd best. So that's kind of, I guess, the tier difference of where I would see both Jaylen and Siakam versus Lavine. Just a couple other names that I had on here just to see. I want to see just your reaction to like some of the guys that I was bantying about here on my list.
Let's go one for one.
Okay, so the other guy that I was really debating was Precious Achiuwa.
Got him on mine too, baby.
Yeah, dude, he's athletic. I think I disagree with almost every decision he makes on a basketball court, other than when he's just giving you effort, which I get. Like, every other actual decision that he needs to make, I think it's almost always the wrong one.
The Precious party, it just not many people are sticking around at that party right now, or showing, because I feel like last year everybody was like, "Oh, Precious Achiuwa, like
he would have been a better answer for this last year." That I was like, I don't see it. Like, I think that's why I veered off and went Zach Lavine, because I was like, I think this last year might have been my answer, but like it's Zach Lavine was the better answer for right now.
Yeah, no, but I agree. I think Precious, for whatever like the measurables with him, and when you look at him, and I don't know if people see like a Justice Winslow coming out of college type with him. You know what I mean? Like, I don't really get it. He can't shoot. He doesn't make good decisions. He's a solid defender, gives a lot of rebounding, but to me, he's like maxing out Kenneth Faried.
Yeah,
like
not
that's
into
that's
it.
the level of player that he is.
What other names did you have on it?
Another Raptor, Gary Trent Jr.
Okay.
Just never really seen it. Never really seen it with the guy. I don't think he's worth $20 million a year. Every time I watch him
is he making 20 mil?
Roughly, yeah.
Is that what it's? Shit. Okay,
yeah.
I didn't. Yeah, I don't know if I see it for 20 mil. I like Gary Trent, but once again, this is like how you always say I love Davis Bertans. I loved Bertans before he got $18 million a year. Yeah. Like, I loved him in his role when he was getting $3 to $5 million. Like, that was fantastic. When he's getting 18 million. Nah, I don't see that, but this is funny. This didn't mean to be a shit on the Raptors period, but I had another Raptor on my list too. Okay. And this is a much lower one, but Chris Boucher, I just feel like some people always think that there's like something else with Boucher.
Yeah.
He's older. I get it. He's got, Wemby, Bol light skills, and but no, it's just a no.
He's not even that tall. He's like 6'9", 6'10".
I thought he was a little bit taller than that, but he's just lanky as fuck though. So I think it's just like the appearance of it. All right, one more guy each, and then we'll.
Well, how about this? You try and guess one more guy that's on my list. I try and guess one more guy that's on your list.
Okay. Let me see. Another guy that would be on your list, late to the party, just don't get it. He's on my list too, but I think he's a guy that you might have. John Collins.
Yeah, he's on my list. I was gonna go MPJ for you.
No, he's not. That's a good one though. That is a good one. I probably actually should have had him on here because actually I'm really torn with MPJ because I get why people like him, and I think in the last year or so he's kind of, at least temporarily, been resigned to like, hey, I'm the 3/4 guy on this team. It's me and Aaron Gordon, and like Aaron Gordon's going to give the defense, but the nights I'm cooking, you're like, Jokic is going to find me. I'm playing with the greatest, like, passing center of all time, and just you can take out center, one of the greatest passers of all time in Nikola Jokic. Like, if I'm cooking, he's going to look for me. He's going to find me. I'm going to get it going. And so I've like cooled on that because he's kind of settled into being okay with that role. We'll see if that lasts. He had a pretty stinker of a final, so we'll see, where that ends up. But okay, I'm digging this vibe break. I'm digging this game here. Let's take a break. We'll come back with the last two categories. All right, back at the party here. Burgers are on the grill. Dogs are on the grill. We got a couple of beers cracked open. We're a little early. It hasn't quite started popping off yet. We're early to the party. Let me give you my guy first on this one.
Okay.
And I went with a guy who, honestly, like I need to watch more of, but every time I watch him, I have a good time doing it, despite the fact that I hate watching his team play. Alperen Sengun on the Houston Rockets. And I think
that's my brother's favorite player in the league right now.
Really? All right. Yeah. Shout out to our guy, Chuck. Yeah. I mean, like, I think the momentum's building on him. He's got that. I'm not going to say Jokic because it's just too much, but he's got the Sabonis mold. I'll leave it at Sabonis mold. I think he has all-star, maybe, kind of like Sabonis, third team all NBA, depending on the year, of where you can get to. But this guy's footwork is unreal. It's just something you don't see in the NBA these days. I think last year, let me see, I'm pulling up, I had his stats up here a second ago. He was 15, 9 rebounds, 4 assists per game. And like I said, I hate watching the Rockets. I watch the Rockets very minimally. I did like to watch a lot of Sengun highlights because he's just so much fun to watch. Distributes the basketball. He's not the greatest on defense, not really much of a shooter, but he has room to grow. I mean, he's 20 years old, I think, right now. So he's got plenty of room to be able to grow. And if certain Celtics fans, I feel like, lament, because this was the Celtics pick that went out in the Al Horford, Kemba Walker trade. So some of them are like, what if we had Sengun? Listen, like, a lot of what ifs there. Like, Al Horford's been pretty damn good for the last couple seasons the Celtics have had. He's making probably more of an impact than Sengun would have immediately, but I get it. Sengun's a lot of fun to watch right now. I think with that Rockets team, I'm interested to see how he works with Fred VanVleet, because a little like I was saying with Jokic with Porter, but more so with Jokic with Murray, right? Like, how does it work having that shooter that you can kind of work off of? Because a lot of his game is in the low post, where he's doing a lot of almost like Kevin McHale like type footwork moves, or he's kind of working out of the middle of the middle of the offense like Sabonis does from the free throw line. Maybe he can run some handoffs like you've seen with Jokic and with Sabonis. So I think Sengun's a guy that has all-star and or potentially some all NBA potential.
Yeah, Charles was like ready to trade Jaylen Brown for Sengun.
I'm not quite there yet. That's a little bit higher, but I'm a big fan of his game for sure.
Yeah, Charles was like, all right, Sengun, the fourth pick, and one more of the young guys, like your favorite of the young guys that they have. And I was like, like Sengun's good, and that was before the Kristaps trade too. Once the Kristaps trade happened, then that kind of went out the window. Okay. Let's see. I have a bunch of guys on here. I talked about this guy on a recent pod, so I'll avoid him. But do you know who I'm talking about when I say I talked about this guy on a recent pod?
Who did you? No, give me the name though, just so.
Nembhard.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I
love Nembhard, but I already talked about him. Why I love him. I'm gonna go an Atlanta Hawk. I've expressed my adoration for this player before. I expressed how I was early to the party on a guy that he reminds me a lot of earlier in the pod. That is Okongwu from the Hawks. I love Okongwu. I've seen some big men. Yeah, I've seen some moments from him on the defensive end where I'm like, this guy needs to play a lot more for them. But because John Collins was there, because Capella's been like the big man, he's kind of entrenched in that role. It's been tough for him to just be given those minutes. You would like, as a Hawks fan, you're probably like, well, he needs to earn those minutes. But I think the Hawks were never really doing anything with we don't like John Collins, right? So
we just talked about it.
Yeah, objectively, it's like, well, just sit John Collins. Like Capella's not that good either. Like let Okongwu be the guy, get rid of Capella, get rid of Collins, and let's see what happens with Okongwu at the 5. And I really like Okongwu. I think he could be an all defensive candidate, not a defensive player of the year candidate, but an all defensive team candidate. And I want to see more from that guy, because I think what I've seen at times protecting the rim and also his ability to switch out onto a Jason Tatum or a Jaylen Brown is pretty impressive.
Injuries aside, Okongwu versus Rob Williams.
Probably Rob.
Okay, what would be the difference maker for you in that?
I think Rob's athleticism is just out of this world. I think Okongwu is probably the safer bet to have a better long-term career than Rob. And like this year, he very might well be better than Rob. Who knows? But I think what I've seen from Rob, his peak potential on the defensive end, I think Rob has the potential to be a defensive player of the year. Like between the two of them, they're both making their bones on the defensive end.
Yeah, and I like Okongwu a lot too. I mean, that was the point I think Zach Lowe brought up on his most recent podcast, where Hawks kind of sniffing around Pascal Siakam, but like, what is the trade that makes that work? Like, they're going to ask for Hunter and Okongwu, and the Hawks are probably going to push back because why don't you take Capella instead of Okongwu? And they're like, how about we don't? And then that's kind of where it starts to fall apart. But I like that Okongwu pick. I think especially in that first round series against the Hawks this year, he's one of the him. And DeJounte Murray and Bogdanovich were the 3 guys that I walked away like, okay, I like those are 3 guys that I feel like, I don't know if you can necessarily say you could quote unquote build around them, but those are 3 guys that I want in the mix as I'm building my team. Those are 3 guys
with the right star. Those are great pieces.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So that's why I don't know if they're part of the building. They're not, they're not the full support structure, but I like that pick. A couple other guys that I had on my list here. I mentioned Terrence Mann earlier. I'm not sure if he's early to the party because he kind of did have a breakout 2 years ago in the postseason, but it's just when you look at his numbers, they're not overly impressive, right? But I feel like when you watch that Clippers team, when they were at their best, he was really involved in one way or another, whether he was handling the ball, whether it was, his defensive presence. And I think when you do think of we reference potentially a James Harden Sixers Clippers trade, like that for me, if I'm the Sixers, is like, okay, Norm Powell's cool, but you better give me Terrence Mann too, plus, some other stuff to go ahead and get this done. I think like both of them together, don't know if they make up for James Harden, but I can at least see some of that vision. And then you can kind of pair him and Maxey together. That could be interesting. 2 other small end guys or role players that I had, guys that I've talked about before. Jalen Duren was on another segment that we did. Just like his upside. I think really fun to watch. Dude is 19 or 18, whatever he is, comes in and it just is all over the place when you watch that Pistons team. And then another guy that I talked about when I was talking about my love for Tyus Jones is Santi Aldama, man. I'm excited to watch him in FIBA with the Spain team. I think he's really good. He got about 20 minutes a game for the Grizzlies this year.
You do love Santi Aldama.
Dude, he's great, man. Dude, I'm telling you, I think Santi Aldama is really good, man. He's got some good numbers here. What do you play? I got it. See, he played 21 minutes a game, shot 47% from the field, shot 35% from three. You know, I think he's got some size. Yeah, I think he's got something to him there. He got 5 rebounds a game in 20 minutes. And I just felt like every time he's one of those guys that when you do watch a game, even if he doesn't have, he's Derek White-ish, but in big form, right?
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't always have the stats, but I just feel like unlike who did I say this? Unlike Precious Achiuwa, I agree with almost every decision that he makes on the basketball court and that he's contributing to them being successful.
Okay, other guys that I have on my list here. I'm just going to go ahead and list everybody. Some of these people you might say like, oh, they're already at the party. We'll see. But Franz, KCP, Darius Garland, Grimes, Jaden McDaniels, DeAndre Hunter, Quickly, Keegan Murray, Keldon Johnson, Trey Murphy, Nembhard. That was the list of guys that I just like. I like what they do within their current roles.
Yeah, KCP and Trey Murphy were 2 guys that I thought about putting on my list as well. Because KCP, like you said, it's the role thing, right? That's why this is kind of cool because you can adapt this to what it means for that particular role. I'm not expecting KCP to be a star, but to be that 3-and-D guy that can play with bench units, can play, in crunch time. He's got a really strong, versatile game. And then Trey Murphy, I just haven't watched enough Trey Murphy. I like the little bits that I've seen, but I didn't feel comfortable enough to put him on that list. But I like that. I like where your head's at. And yeah, I think some of those guys you listed, I probably thought of as more at the party. So let's go to the final part of this segment here. Those that are at the party, these are guys that I love them. Greg loves them. Everybody loves them. It's going to be hard to find too much disagreement on these guys. And I don't know if I have one or I think we should just kind of rapid fire some names back and forth. I feel like this is one where I could have kept going. I have a list of like 10 names here, and I probably could have kept going, to be honest.
Who's the most veteran player on your list?
Most veteran player on my list. Let's see here. I guess it would be Josh Hart is probably the most veteran guy that I have on here.
Okay, so you think Josh Hart is at the party? Tell me why. Make the case.
He's at the party. I mean, so I have a couple of guys that fit the Josh Hart mold, because that to me was just, this guy is, no matter what team you have, if you're a championship team, this guy can do something for you to make you better.
Okay.
So I think Josh Hart's in that mold. Bruce Brown is in that mold. I think Lou Dort's in that mold. Those are 3 guys that I all felt kind of like fit the same thing, that no matter where you're at in your timeline, if you're looking to be a contending team, these guys are going to be able to play a valuable role. And I think it'd be hard pressed to say, I mean, unless this is kind of back to what you said about KCP about early to the party, they kind of fit that in that role. Now, if you're thinking that they're going to be stars, yeah, they're not hitting that stratosphere. But if you're just looking to build culture and build, guys in your rotation that are going to have meaningful impact on winning, I think the 3 of them could do that for just about any team in the league.
Okay, so I'll give you my list equivalent of your Josh Hart, Alex Caruso. I think everybody around the league is now at the party that Alex Caruso is not just Elmer Fudd playing basketball. He's an actual hooper, and he can provide a ton of value as your defensive ace. He can guard 1 through 4 pretty handedly. And if the Celtics somehow ended up with Alex Caruso, I would be ecstatic. I think the guy's great.
Yeah, Cruz is awesome. I mean, like you said, I think he fits right into that mold of like those super versatile role players that just everyone has a role for them. They'll find a way to contribute. Did you have any guys so you used the SGA reference earlier? He was a guy that I had on my list for this at the party. I've got 3 other guys that I think are kind of along those same lines. So
can I guess?
Yeah, go for it.
Ant Edwards.
I didn't put him on here. I mean, I do think he's at the party, but I just feel like he's beyond at the party. He's in the VIP at the party.
Okay. All right. I would make the argument that SGA is in the VIP more than Edwards is.
That's probably fair. I mean, I think more it's just, and Edwards came in as the number 1 pick.
True.
And then he did really, whereas SGA was kind of like building it up a little bit.
Yeah.
more.
No, I always forget Anthony Edwards is the number 1 pick. Halliburton.
Yeah. He's one of the 3 guys that I'm talking about. Yeah.
For sure. I mean, Halliburton, I think I was late to the party on Halliburton early in his career. I didn't see it. I think part of it is because I love De'Aaron Fox, and people were talking about like him being the guy to keep over Fox, and I just have this irrational attachment to Fox. But this year was like such validation for me. I was like, yes, De'Aaron Fox is finally becoming that guy, because I loved him all the way back in Kentucky. Also, just quick note, I think it's really cool that these college players are teaming up, like Fox and Monk, and then you got the Villanova guys in New York now. I want to see more of that in the NBA, just like these college players
it's
getting
those
together.
Twitter arguments that are coming to life, right? Where it's like, what if you took everybody from Duke and Kansas and Texas and put them all on the team? And I mean, honestly, like, you know, we were talking about Josh Hart a minute ago. The reason they're able to do that is because Josh Hart didn't go out to the open market and go get more money, because he could have got more than 12 million. I think he probably could have been, you know, in that 15, 16, 17 million dollar range if he wanted to have a bidding war, but he opted in for 12 million. So they get a little bit of extra money to go get his boy Dante.
Dude, they got to get this guy on the team, Mikal Bridges, on my at the party list. I feel like everyone's now at the party with Mikal Bridges. They got to get him on New York.
I've liked him for a while. He probably would have been on my early to the party list last year if we did this. I've always liked Mikal. I didn't think he necessarily could do the things that he started to do in Brooklyn, and we'll see if he maintains that. But I've always really liked Mikal Bridges, even going back to Villanova, and then what he was, you know, as like a supreme 3-and-D early career option in Phoenix.
Yeah, no, he's great. I was super impressed with what he did in Brooklyn. Okay, I have two more guys on my list, and they play for the same team. Who do you think they are?
Well, you already mentioned Franz, right? So it's not going to be the Magic with Paolo and Franz, because that would have been, that was the first person to go. You're a big Magic guy, so that was one that I was thinking of. Do they play for the Oklahoma City Thunder?
They do.
Okay. One of them's Josh Giddey.
Yep.
Okay, because he's also on my list. So the other guy. You're not gonna say Chet after summer league?
No, Jalen Williams.
Okay. That's what I figured. But you had mentioned to me that you really like Chet's game in summer league.
Dude, I love Chet Holmgren.
Well, that's what I mean. That's why I was like, I didn't know if this was gonna be you trying to see if lightning strikes twice, where you were on with Scotty Barnes after a preseason game. I didn't know if this was you going full Babe Ruth, calling your shot here after summer league.
The moment we hang up from this pod, I will be going to check the odds on Chet Rookie of the Year, because I feel like Wemby's odds are probably the highest right now. I'm going to put my money on Chet.
I think Chet's probably second. I think it's between them two and Scoot are basically the odds on pair. But yeah, it's definitely Wemby heavy is probably what you're looking at.
For sure. Anybody else on your at the party list?
I like that we both had Giddey. A guy that I think is a little bit off the radar, Wendell Carter Jr. I don't know. Maybe he should be early to the party just from public perception. To the party guy. Yeah. He'd be early to the party. But I've always liked Wendell Carter Jr. I think he's an underrated building block of what the Magic have going on. Jalen Brunson, I think we talked about him throughout the season. He's established.
I think throughout the season we were early to the party on Brunson, right? We've been early because like I made the case at some point like mid-season, like why, like pretty much I'm so early to the party with Jalen Brunson that I'm saying like a year from now, are we going to look at him in like a Ja Morant on the same level? Like I love Jalen Brunson. I think he's that effective as a player.
I think at one point I had him on my all NBA team, and it was like basically at the end of the year, it was just like, man, him or Randall got to make it, but the guards crowded, forwards easier. Randall kind of makes it, but Brunson is clearly the guy that makes that team go. And that was always my case, was Randall's having such a good year because of Jalen Brunson. So, and I had Naz Reid and I had Austin Reeves, and those are the last two guys that I had on my list here, but I like this, man. This is a fun exercise. You were right. I got to give you credit where credit's due. This was fun. I know Adam is going to be upset that he missed this, so maybe we'll have to run back a slightly altered version so that we can get Adam's take in here. But this is a fun episode, man. And just a reminder, we'll be off for about a week, but you can check us out on YouTube, check us out on Instagram, Twitter. We'll have some content up there for you. I'm going to be on some planes, so maybe I'll chop up a couple of videos.
And on TikTok, bro. Shout out to our TikTok. We had our first viral for us video that's like at like 35,000 views right now. And it's the video where we just talk about how JD Davison shit his pants. JD, and you get the live reaction of Will. So if you haven't checked out, if you have a TikTok and you have not seen the clip of Will finding out in real time that JD Davison shit his pants during a summer league game, go follow us on TikTok at Green Envy Pod, because we've got 35,000 views on that, but that did not translate to more followers, because like we're a little too old for TikTok. So now that we're trying to build our TikTok, like I think we have like 31 followers on TikTok, and I know that
we could use some loving on TikTok.
Yeah,
so loving on Instagram too. So make sure y'all following us on both.
No doubt. But that's all I got, man.
All right, man. Well, what are we gonna hear on the way out of here as we wrap this up and head into vacation?
Keep it rolling with some Black Sheep Optimists, questions and lies. Peace, everybody. Talk to you soon.
Peace, y'all.